welcome back to the channel. I'm Susan.
I'm Tab.
And oh my gosh, we are here to talk about WandaVision. We're going to be covering the first 2 episodes in this show, but we're kind of treating it like one big episode since they dropped at the same time. But we're super excited to talk about it. However, we should warn you that there are going to be spoilers in this episode for the first 2 episodes of WandaVision and for a lot of the MCU. So if you're not caught up in all of the MCU, pause and then catch up before watching.
Go watch those things.
Yeah, watch those things and then come back to us because we'll be happy to be here for you when you're like, oh my God, what the heck happened there? So yeah.
Yes.
Tab.
Susan. There's so much to love about what they're doing.
I know.
And I mean, just even before we get into the MCU stuff, all that acting and direction and like camera work, everything was so incredible and so of the time.
Seamless and brilliantly done. Just completely brilliant. And I don't know about you, but I've never seen anything done like this before. It's completely unique to what it is. And that's so wonderful.
It really is. Sometimes sitcoms will do a one-off episode where it's in another style or
right. Or they'll do like a musical episode.
Yeah. But this is a whole series in a bunch of different genres.
I know. And I'm here for it 100%. So
same. I don't remember if we talked about this last time, but Matt Shakman, the director, is an incredible director. He's directed a lot of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which Susan and I both love.
Both super love.
So already a huge fan of him. And I was going through which episodes he directed, and he has done a lot of the ones that were like genres or plays on other stuff.
Amazing.
He did Charlie Work, which was an homage to True Detective.
Amazing.
So the first episode, even though we're going to talk about both as one, was their Dick Van Dyke episode.
It was so good. I even loved in the opening the reference to the Dick Van Dyke falling over the chair, but Vision phased through it. I laughed so hard.
In case you don't know what that is, on the Dick Van Dyke show, in the opening credits, he would always fall over the chair in the opening.
Or like the ottoman. Yeah.
Or the ottoman,
Yeah. And so Vision, because he can phase, instead of falling over it, phased through it. And it was brilliant. So, yeah.
And I think Paul Bettany giving off some great Dick Van Dyke vibes. I think Elizabeth Olsen giving off some wonderful Mary Tyler Moore vibes, like really nailing that energy.
Both of them completely nailing that energy. And the like misunderstanding comedy was just so spot on, and how they did it was just completely brilliant. I kept being shocked by like how brilliant the show was. Completely.
Just a classic series of sitcom misunderstandings.
And then just the reference to the heart, and the heart, obviously for a couple, a heart means like anniversary or love or something like that. But then the heart turns out to be the boss's name. And that's like such a complete funny misunderstanding that would happen in a 50s sitcom. So it was
absolutely
so
and then the phone call later where neither one of them is specific, and if they would just be specific, they could figure out what was going on.
Totally. And then in the second episode, it was the Bewitched episode from the 1960s. And personally, that style on Elizabeth Olsen, I could not stop swooning over her, just of how like cute she looked.
And
the again, the misunderstanding comedy, but also the perfect situational comedy where there's the one joke, the gum joke that leads into the performance joke that was set up at the beginning when they're practicing the performance, that then leads to like, you know, ties into Wanda being nervous about the neighborhood like mean girl lady. that leads into like them actually doing well and being accepted. So like all of that was just so well woven together, and the little nods to the powers, except instead of the like I can't do the bewitched nose twitch, like
Oh.
yeah, I can't do it, but instead of this, the
Yes.
like that was
Well,
great, because it was a perfect bewitched episode, but instead of this it was like a
and I even thought that Paul Bettany and Lizzie Olsen adjusted their performances slightly to be more like Darren and Samantha,
exactly
which are the main characters on Bewitched. Again, if you're not familiar
right.
with old sitcoms.
I'm just like, yeah, because I know, but yeah.
When he gets scared and jumps into the bed, that was so Darren to me. That was perfect.
And the over acting the magician part also was very Darren, and for her to like to calm him and correct him and like have the poise, that was so Samantha, because Samantha was always the one with the poise and Darren was always the one who was kind of goofy. So
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it was just so well done. Awesome.
So let's talk about the characters that were introduced and Easter eggs as we went along through the episode. We'll try to do them in order, but I don't necessarily know that I remember them in the correct order.
I probably won't remember them in the correct order, so I'm gonna go off of your lead, but also like, yeah, I have a tendency to tangent, so we'll just go with the flow here.
Yeah, do it. So the first one, the first horrible one was when Wanda says, "My husband and his indestructible head," because of course his head was horribly crushed when he died in Infinity War.
That one was sad to me because I was like, Vision.
And then the flying saucers also could have been a reference to in Infinity War when Wanda made those giant wheel things fly away like saucers. Yeah.
Such an excellent Wanda moment. Like, and I love the Okoye line, obviously, with the like, she's been up there the whole time. Why is she up there the whole time?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes.
Yes. And then the date on the calendar is August 23rd. And that correlates to Avengers 238, which is an important issue in that Vision is reactivated in that issue after he was deactivated. He passed through a magical energy field, was deactivated, and that's the issue where you see him come back.
I didn't know that. That's amazing. I'm like kind of like getting a little choked up. I did not know that, but because I don't remember issue numbers. Like that's not something I like paid attention to. I'm so glad that you did all this research to find out.
Yeah, you got to type in numbers and be like,
in this show, all like basically all the numbers they saw, you found at somewhere online, someone who had uncovered it. But oh my God, I didn't know that. Oh, I love that.
And also, since it is about a magical energy field, and we know from the promos that that's what they're inside, it also could mean that if he be a nod to sort of like if he leaves the energy field, maybe he disappears, deactivates, he doesn't work anymore.
That would be, but also that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depending, again, we said before, depending on how he's been resurrected, it could be so many things,
and on so many things. Also, like we've said before, with Scarlet Witch's powers, she could be keeping him inside the energy. She could be very aware, and I know that we'll get to this Easter egg because it happens towards the end of the second episode, but like she could be at least semi-aware of what's going on. There have been hints in the show already that she might have at least some sort of control about things happening.
Some idea.
Yeah. Not, and I think that the part that we'll get into it later.
We'll get in there.
We'll get there. We're going in order. I just totally.
Okay, and then so we meet Agnes, who we told you guys it's probably Agatha Harkness.
Yes.
And the first thing she does is give Wanda a plant. And I'm so stoked to talk about this because in the comics, she gives Vision and Wanda a plant as their wedding gift.
Mm-hmm.
but it's a Wundagore Everbloom, which is a flowering plant. So it's not what she handed them
Right.
in the show, although the pot itself had flowers on it that sort of look like the comic flowers. They supposedly look like roses because you could be tricked into thinking you were buying one and it would really be a rose that was painted. This plant lets you see the future. But it's tricky. You have to eat it twice, once after it's been consumed and once after murder. So basically someone has to eat it and then you have to cut it out of them and then you get to see the future.
Excellent. That sounds like a plant that we all should have. And definitely sounds like a plant that's given to you by your witch mentor.
Oh, absolutely, of course.
Yeah. And something that I was talking about before we started recording is like Agnes is one of the only people that offers her name freely and seems to be confident in the world in which they are. So it kind of supports our theory that Agnes is probably Agatha Harkness and she may know what is going on and also be manipulating the situation slightly because she wants something from Wanda.
Yes, she does seem like she's there on purpose.
Yes.
Sure.
Out of everybody there, she does seem to be there on purpose. And also out of the actors that we saw, she's the only one who's like very prominent in both episodes, because you did see the same characters in one episode to the other, but she's so prominent that her performance actually altered the same way that Lizzie Olsen and Paul Bettany's performance altered. So Catherine Hahn did also a really good job of doing that as well. Again, hinting to the fact that perhaps she is aware of what's happening more so than anybody else in the world.
Yes. Yes. And we know from the promos again that at some point, maybe she doesn't want to be in there anymore if she is aware right now, or maybe at some point she actually gets caught up in whatever spell is happening and really doesn't know what's going on anymore. We don't know.
Right. And she also, we know from the promos that she does seem to be aware of life outside the energy field, because she's the one who makes reference to Vision being an Avenger, which why would anybody know that outside the energy field? Like nobody would know what they were.
I don't think Vision knows that he is anymore.
Right, exactly. That is very clear from that promo. So that's not like a spoiler. We haven't seen ahead. So this is just based on what we have seen and what we know, and that's all out there.
If we're right about something, we're just doing a really good job guessing.
Yeah.
So speaking of the Wundagore, it is used in the comic The Vision. It is used to see the future a few times in that. It plays a big part in that comic that we talked about last time, that they're drawing inspiration from. And there's also so much rose imagery in the show. It is crazy.
So much rose imagery. In fact, the opening scene of the second episode was like they made reference verbally to the roses. You saw them several times. I know this is another Easter egg that's going to come up, but the helicopter that was in color was in the roses. That's where we saw the first glimpse of color in the show, was in the roses. And I thought that was really interesting too.
That is interesting. Let's see. And then I did not catch anything specific to Vision at work or anything that I didn't catch any Easter eggs there.
The only thing I caught with Vision at work is on his work tie. The pattern on the tie was the reference to like his old costume, which was cute.
It's also very similar to the tie he wears in the Vision, but slightly different.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think things are meant to be the reference to the old costume from like when he first showed up, like the pattern. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing that I have is the commercial. The Toastmate commercial.
Did you hear the noise?
I heard the noise, the power-up noise.
So in case you guys didn't hear the noise, when they push the toast down, it makes the same noise as the Iron Man suit when it's powering up. Or the blaster sound. It's an Iron Man.
It's a blaster. Yeah.
It's a blaster sound. the like, yeah.
Yes. The toaster also seems to have sort of Vision's face on it a little bit.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, because it's like there's like a thing for the eyes, and then the blinking thing is right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that. That is so amazing. This is why I need you around, because I didn't even notice that. I was like, oh, it made the Iron Man sound. How cute. It's Stark Industries. It's Stark and Iron Man. Yeah, cool. I didn't even go that far to notice that. So that's fantastic. I also thought it was really interesting that they used the same commercial actors are in both commercials.
More on that in a minute.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the second commercial needs its own thing. So
yeah,
we'll get there.
So when they press the toaster down, it makes the Iron Man sound. And then as it's counting down, it sounds more and more like a bomb.
Oh yeah.
Like it's going to explode. And it does say Stark Industries on it. And so to me, that's very much about the bomb that killed her parents, as well as the bomb that they stared at her and Pietro, waiting for it to explode, but it never did while they were trapped.
For sure.
Because they talked about how they just stared at the name on the side, Stark Industries.
For sure.
And then the toaster, the slogan for the toaster was, "Forget the past, this is your future."
Interesting.
Weird slogan for a toaster.
Very weird slogan for a toaster.
Yeah. Definitely.
It is also interesting to mention, and this is probably me reaching way too deep, but I thought it was interesting at the time that they picked a toaster, because a toaster literally transforms things. That it takes bread and turns it into something, while having the elements of bread, it is not bread anymore. Like everyone can argue that like bread and toast are two different like things, essentially.
Oh, that's
that
really
one is made from the other, but it is an evolution of that. So is that a reference to the evolution of Wanda's powers, the evolution of what has happened with Vision, and also the evolution of the MCU in general?
Taking that, actually, you could even say that like the moment when that bomb didn't go off changed her forever.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Because it sure did.
Yeah, it sure did. And that could be what that is too. So many metaphors, guys.
So many. So then obviously the boss comes over for dinner with his wife, who I'm sure everyone recognized as Deborah Jo Rupp, the mom from that 70s show.
Yeah. And Seinfeld's agent. That's how
Seinfeld's agent, yes. So then we got into, again, just sort of the comedic mishaps of 1950s sitcoms. They, the dinner's not ready. They don't know she didn't know what was going on. She's dressed inappropriately.
Yeah.
The time.
But yeah, and then beyond that, having Agnes come over to solve the problem, another interesting reference to the fact that she's probably Agatha Harkness, and who mentored Wanda in the comics. So, or the Scarlet Witch. And so it is interesting that she was the one who tried to mentor her through like her first dinner party as a married woman. It was just like an interesting like mirroring dynamic, as well as like the mishaps of like trying to cook something and it's too burned. Oh no, the chicken's now eggs. Like
yes.
That made me laugh so hard, because I was like, that's her powers right there. She's trying to alter it. She's trying to adjust.
What was interesting to me about that, and it was that was the first moment where I was like, I feel like Wanda knows more than she's saying she knows, because obviously when she does bring out dinner, the breakfast for dinner, she made that out of nothing. She used her powers to make that, and it was ready immediately.
Right.
So, but to fit in this 50s comedy aesthetic, she has to try to make the dinner, and it can't go well. It can't go right to be accurate to the sitcom.
Right. That's a good point. And that's something I thought of too, where I was just like, I was like yelling at the TV at one point, where I was like, why is she doing this? She could just make it. Like, she doesn't need to borrow dinner from anybody. She could just make a dinner.
She could just make it.
And then that's what happened.
Love the bit, the classic, again, classic comedy from the 50s when Mrs. Hart opens the window and Vision
Yes.
starts singing yakety yak to
Yep.
distract her.
Yep. And then she gets super into singing yakety yak with him. And I'm like,
Yeah.
nobody gets super into singing yakety yak. That doesn't
Never.
happen. But because it's a 50s sitcom, it absolutely happens. And they have to like close the thing, distract her. She doesn't go back to see what's going on still. She just like completely is distracted by the singing. So
Yeah. And at some point there, Agnes comes back. She knocks on the door. She has a pineapple, and she's also wearing a cape now. Which cape?
Yep.
But pineapples are known for fertility, and since we are talking about both of these episodes at the same time, I feel like even in the first episode, there's pressure on Wanda about having children.
Oh yeah. I'm pretty and again, watching them back to back is a little confusing because sometimes I'm not sure. I'm like, does this have, because they did say like, oh no, they did say this at the dinner party. Deborah Jo Rupp's character asked when they're having children.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't you have children yet?
Yeah. And then that's when they get confused about their story.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So let's talk about that, because Wanda totally broke and like stared off into space. She disassociated.
Right. And when she disassociated, what happened to the world?
It started to fall apart.
Exactly. So like, again, hints to the fact that Wanda is at least in control of what is happening right now. Whether she like how much of it she's aware of or not, she is in control of the world.
She is, absolutely. So much so that I watched it again last night and I could not see that Mr. Hart took a bite of food before he started choking.
Oh. So did she just make him choke?
I think she put the strawberry in his throat. I might be wrong about this. Someone else can look and tell me if they see him taking a bite of food, but he's talking and then he starts choking.
Interesting. I'm gonna actually, because I've watched him twice and I need to watch it again now, because now I need to see Vision's face on the toaster, and now I need to look for this too. Interesting.
What's great about the direction and just incredible about the camera work is that when it's in the 50s style, it's shot like in a very specific like visual language. And as soon as Wanda loses her grip on what's going on, the visual language breaks.
Completely shifts.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like horror movie, long close-ups, weird angle close-ups.
I loved that.
Yes.
I loved that because that was the visual storytelling was brilliant in that sense. Just like the shift from the very specific 50s sitcom storytelling to just a completely different thing.
Yeah, and now it's a horror movie.
And now it's a horror movie. And then when help him Vision, and then it switches back.
Yes.
But after he uses his powers.
Right. But Wanda there didn't even realize it had switched back, which was interesting. It just did. Also before that, this is the moment while he's choking. Before that, he was saying, "Why did you come here?" And then he starts choking, and Mrs. Hart says, "Stop it," in the 1950s jokey way, and it gets more and more urgent.
Yeah.
And real. And that's where I think like these are just people that are trapped in this and they kind of know.
Yeah.
Because if Wanda breaks for a second and reality starts to falter, the people around her seem to start waking up.
Which is what we saw again we'll get there, but in the second episode, we saw it happen again with Dottie in a similar way. When Wanda started to break, Dottie started to come back, but we'll get there.
We'll get there. So Vision doesn't help until he's told to. And he looks like he wants to. He looks very scared. So she has some level of control that he cannot break on his own, or he's afraid of her, and what might happen if he breaks the reality that they've created.
Yeah. And both are very real possibilities based on different things that have happened in their relationship in the comics. There are like when he breaks up with her, it's because he's afraid. He finds out she did something to his reality, and he is afraid of her, but also loves her at the same time. Like, it's very upsetting. So yes, I loved that specifically because that felt very real to the relationship they've had in the comics from the beginning, where it's like he wants to do something, but it really is her call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To a terrifying point, to let this man die on the floor.
For sure.
Yeah, but then as soon as Vision uses his power to take out the what I think was the strawberry, everything goes back to normal.
Out something that very much looked like a strawberry.
Yeah.
It just didn't occur to me that the guy never ate it. Like, I saw him pull out very much like a piece of something that looked like the strawberry. And we knew that she had a strawberry because she made a reference to having a strawberry. So, yeah.
And then Wanda is concerned still while they all snap back to sitcom.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And then she just goes along with it. So blew me away that in the first episode we see that they are broadcasting this onto a TV.
And we got the first, we talked about this a little bit in our predictions episode before this, but we saw the sword logo on the notebook of whoever's watching their broadcast. But one of the interesting Easter eggs that I found on Collider was the reference to Abe Brown directing it.
Did you I vaguely remember something about this.
So the reference to Abe Brown is apparently the director of whatever broadcast is happening that Sword is watching. And Abe Brown is a reference to a comic called Sons of the Tiger, which is a martial arts comic that has characters like Misty Knight and Iron Fist, who you know from the other Netflix shows. But the interesting thing, Colleen Wing as well. But the interesting thing is the other member of that team is Shang-Chi, who we know is going to be a part of the MCU moving forward. They're filming the movie right now with Simu Liu, and he is also like, so the reference to Abe Brown is very much tying into something that they have sort of established. It also kind of supports the theory that the Netflix shows are going to be coming into this Disney Plus and being integrated into this type of universe. So it references character like that. Sons of the Tiger is them, as well as a character that we know is coming into the MCU moving forward.
Yay.
What it means, I don't know, but we'll discover it together. So it was just a very cool reference that I found on Collider. So thanks to Collider for doing a little deep dive into that.
And we'll talk about Sword more. In fact, that was one of our popular questions that we got this week, was like, what is that symbol that we keep seeing? What is that? So I'll tell you right now, it's Sword. It's a agency similar to S.H.I.E.L.D., but not exactly the same. And we're actually going to do a whole video, short video, but just talking about what Sword is so that everyone can get caught up on that.
Right. We decided that there were so many inquiries about what Sword is and who and what that symbol was that we would just do a different episode that just is like a mini deep dive into Sword itself. So stay tuned for that. It'll be out later this week. So yeah, we're gonna not really talk about Sword much in this episode because of that. I mean, we still will.
Yeah, well, I mean, we still will, but not as much. Not as much. Yeah. Okay, so then the second episode is the 60s. It's Bewitched. A show that, if you don't know, was about a normal human man who married a witch. And that's
Wanda. I'm gonna keep doing this. Well, obviously Wanda's superhero name is the Scarlet Witch, so it was an obvious choice for their 60s show to do Bewitched, a witch show from the 60s.
Yes, and the opening was adorable.
So cute. So cute.
A couple or like there were a couple Easter eggs in that opening. A couple of them, and one of them was like blink and you'll miss it.
Yeah,
but
I missed it. You sent it to me in a text. That's the only reason I even saw that one.
The first one is when in the credits when Vision is getting ready and it pans down to the first floor. You can see in between the floorboards of the house if you pause it, and in there's some bones and there's a helmet, and the helmet belongs to Grim Reaper, who is a big deal in the Vision comic. He is a main antagonist for the events that occur there. I still don't want to spoil that comic for people, but he's in it.
Yeah, and that's really my only reference to the Grim Reaper. I know nothing about him outside that particular book, so that it's just going to be interesting to also do a Who is the Grim Reaper episode specifically, because like it'll be you teaching me about that.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
We don't know for sure if that was just a fun Easter egg or if Grim Reaper's going to show up here. Maybe. I don't know.
I mean, it stands to reason, like logically, he is the antagonist in a comic that we know that they're referencing. So it could just be a nod to the comic. Could be something more.
And then when they're in the grocery store in the opening credits, the ads in the background are all references. And one is Annie A's kitty litter. And that's the one I'd like to focus on because that is, again, Agatha Harkness, who had a cat. Would be Auntie A.
I also want to bring up the reference to the bova milk as well, because
yes,
that is a reference to a sentient cow who helped deliver Wanda and her twin brother Pietro. It's so funny. A sentient cow who was the midwife.
Sometimes when you're just getting into like, well, I want to know what this comic is, just this like one little thing, and then it's just bizarre. And
yeah,
then,
exactly. Yeah. Like that was one of the, like I saw it and I started laughing and I was just watching it just going like, this is so random, because obviously comics get really weird as you're starting to kind of see with all these references. But the fact that they referenced a sentient cow, like obviously sentient cows exist in comics, because why wouldn't they? Everything else does. Why not sentient cows?
So in this episode, we see a little bit more of how if something doesn't fit into the world that Wanda has created, it changes. Let's say she alters it in some way. So to that end, the banging on the window being the tree branch and all those sounds before it, probably something else.
Yeah, probably not a tree branch.
Probably not.
So it worked very well in the sitcom narrative that she has created, but it probably wasn't the tree branch, as evidenced by something that happened at the end that I'm sure we'll get to.
Oh, sure. So you could guess that they are hearing people from Sword arrive, because once we get into a little further along in this episode, there are a bunch of new characters that we did not see in the first episode. So where did these people come from?
Yeah, for sure, including the introduction of Geraldine. Geraldine, that we have to put in quotes because we know who that actress is playing. Yes. And that is Monica Rambeau. I love your sweater.
Oh, I'm wearing my Geraldine sweater.
Yeah, that is definitely a reference to Geraldine, that well-known Marvel Comics character, Geraldine.
So then, the Magic Act. So they're working on the Magic Act. The Vanishing Cabinet has the Mind Stone on it.
Oh yeah, that was she just rolls it out and I was like, well, if you missed that Easter egg, I don't know what to tell you. That's literally the Mind Stone. And in MCU continuity, Wanda was made from the Mind Stone and Vision has the Mind Stone. So
yes, it's a part of him.
Yeah, it's a part of them, and it's a part of both of them.
Yeah. So that was the big one there. And then Wanda is like cleaning, tidying up, and she hears another sound that doesn't make sense in the reality she's created. And she goes out and finds in color a little helicopter. with the sword logo on it.
That is the colors of Iron Man's armor, by the way. It was like a bright red with gold accents.
Yeah. But you could also say those are Vision's colors.
You could also say they're Vision's colors as well.
Yeah. So about the helicopter, I think it was a normal helicopter that tried to come in, and because that doesn't fit in her reality, now she made it small.
Right.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. Again, I will say that I found it interesting that she found the helicopter on top of the rose bushes, which were referenced at the beginning of that episode. And then that's where she finds the helicopter, and it's the first bit of color you see against a bed of white roses.
Mm-hmm.
And who pulls her out of that?
Agnes.
Agnes.
Agnes
is always there when something.
Yeah, when something distracts her, Agnes pops up and calls her the star of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And then also has a rabbit named Senior Scratchy, which is Mr. Scratch, which is, I'm sure many people know, a nickname for the devil.
Mm-hmm.
And also Agatha Harkness has a son named Nick Scratch, which is another nickname for the devil. But very, very big Agatha Harkness naming thing right there.
Right. So I have a question because I couldn't place this reference. What is Ralph? She's always talking, like, very loudly talking about her her husband Ralph, who we haven't seen yet.
I think a lot of sitcoms, even more modern ones, have that. Well, and I don't know if this is true, but right now it's reading to me like that one character you never see, but like she doesn't want to be married.
Okay. That's what I thought too. I completely thought that too. I was like, this is just like Maris on Frasier or something like that. And she's trying very hard to fit into this world, so she keeps talking about an unnamed character. But also, I was like, is that all? I feel like Tab might know if Ralph is somebody.
The stuff that I found for Ralph all seemed like a pretty big stretch.
Okay.
So I think that if he does end up showing up, I think he's likely working with Agatha. We'll talk about some of the villains that might be in this.
Yeah.
Here towards the end, because we got a lot of questions about it. But so I think Ralph for now is just that guy you never see, and like the fun, my husband is like the worst thing.
I mean, it's a trope in sitcoms since sitcoms. So it made sense. Like, that's what it registered to me as that. But obviously, the more I thought about the show, the more my brain started to spiral, and the more I was like, what's
happening? Okay, so here's my weird thing that maybe you have an explanation for. The aside that Agnes has with the mailman, real weird, not necessary for the plot.
Real weird.
Yeah, what was that?
I either think the mailman is a bigger character and they were talking in code, and that was an introduction. That's what to me, that's what it read as, is like the mailman either is a messenger to the bigger character, but it just seemed like they were talking in code, not like they were maybe they're both aware of the situation that they're in and were saying specific things that way and transferred a message to him. That's what I thought. But the only reason I thought that was because I'm completely under the impression that she's Agatha Harkness. Like, I'm not being fooled by this Agnes thing. Yeah. So I was like, oh, well, that's code for something. She's passing a message to whoever her boss is, the big bads, or either that or the mailman is in fact that person, which I didn't think so, because I feel like it would have been a more recognizable person if it was.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they walk together, and Agnes tells her how important Dottie is, and impressing her, and brings up babies again. Where are those babies?
Yep. Where are those babies?
Also, when they sit down and they're in that meeting.
Yeah, that poolside meeting.
Poolside meeting.
Yeah, there's a meeting that people normally have in their neighborhoods.
Yeah, so normal. Yeah. But there's a bowl of eggs on that table, and it was making me crazy. Because obviously, eggs are fertility and stuff like that. And there's just no reason for there to be a bowl of eggs on the table during this meeting.
Yes, eggs are what she accidentally made in the first episode. Like she turned the chicken into eggs and then they ate eggs for dinner.
Yes.
Just pointing that out. There have been a lot of eggs in this show.
So many eggs.
So many eggs. So many like, hey.
Eggs.
Anyway.
And then we meet Geraldine.
Yeah, Geraldine.
Who
pauses and has to think about her name and then kind of snaps in to Geraldine.
Yes. What's unclear there is that since we know she's Monica Rambeau, she's almost certainly a sword agent. Does she know that she's undercover right now, or is she already under the spell?
That's exactly my question. The same exact question. It read to me like she was trying to fight it, and then Geraldine, like she couldn't. Like Wanda was too powerful for whatever it was, which also kind of supports like our theory that we're gonna see Monica Rambeau get her powers, because maybe that's how she can finally snap out of it, is she gets her powers and can like at least be aware enough to fight back mentally against what Wanda's doing.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really support what Monica Rambeau winds up being, but like they can alter it for the MCU or something. But it just would make her stronger, and maybe that is the catalyst to her becoming aware.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know.
I don't know if that's correct. It's just something that it's just a like a sprinkled theory, I guess. It's not a solid one. It's just a maybe. Just a little maybe. Maybe because she does have like a resistance, but then can't.
Yeah.
And
then obviously Vision is at his neighborhood watch meeting. That goes badly for him with the gum. I've been wondering, they're all under the spell, but does it affect them if WandaVision isn't in the room with them?
I was wondering the same thing, because that was an instance where the people at the neighborhood watch did not seem to be doing anything until Vision came in.
Yeah. So I wonder if those are other SHIELD agents and they're trying to figure out what to do, or even just like people who are stuck in there, like talking about it, trying to figure out how to get out of it. It makes sense that they would schedule some kind of meeting to talk when Wanda and Vision aren't around, if that's the case.
Right. And they really, in the beginning of that meeting, did not seem to want Vision there.
Yeah. And his friend, whose name I've already forgotten, the one that tells him like, oh, this is a members only kind of thing. He really reads to me like he's maybe a sword agent.
Oh, for sure. Because he was also in the he also works with him at the whatever they do company.
At the whatever they do.
So he reads to me like a sword agent as well, because he also seems to be like placed strategically to keep tabs on Vision specifically.
Yeah. So that could very easily have been a sword meeting that Vision messed up.
Right. Totally. And then another guy there was the one that was fired from the whatever they do agency. He was there.
That poor guy. Yeah. He also loses the piano.
That was my grandmother's piano.
Yeah. Okay, so then Wanda's helping Dottie clean up, and we head into another break in reality. Dottie basically says that she doesn't like Wanda and Vision, that she's heard things and she doesn't believe that they're not going to hurt them. And then the radio starts to mess up. Now there's two things here that are super interesting to me. The song that was playing was the Beach Boys, Help Me Rhonda, but it actually sounded like they had softened, they had softened that R or taken it out.
I noticed the exact same thing where I was like, because I actually like started singing along with it and was like, and I started singing Help Me Wanda, and then was like, wait, that's not the words to the song. The words, she's Rhonda in the song, not Wanda.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they took that R right out. And And then we hear someone come through and say, "Who's doing this to you, Wanda?" Obviously, again, Sword's trying to break through. They're trying to help her because they don't know what's going on. And we can go ahead and answer this question right now because a couple people asked us, "Who is that on the radio?" And that is Jimmy Woo.
Yeah.
100%.
100% Jimmy Woo. 100%.
There's no mistaking Randall Park's voice.
Yeah, that is 100. Like, that is Randall Park, who plays Jimmy Woo. That is 100% him coming through the radio.
Yeah. So and he is likely
we know that he's a sword agent. We know these things about him. It's him.
Yeah, it's just him.
Yeah,
it's just him. So that's who that is.
Say it's him.
If you want to cross-reference, you can look up scenes from Ant-Man and the Wasp where he is asking Scott what's going on and did he leave his house.
Yeah, it's Randall Park's voice. There's no mistaking it.
Yeah. But this is our second big reality break where Wanda loses it for a minute. And Dottie seems to wake up because now she doesn't even know who Wanda is. And then the glass breaks and the blood's in color because Wanda wasn't expecting it. Blood isn't a big thing in old sitcoms. Don't see a lot of blood.
Right.
And then I don't know, the radio explodes, and I assume it's from Wanda, that Wanda busted the radio. Yeah. And then everything again snaps back to normal, except Wanda knows that something weird just happened.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, and my same assessment. It makes me think also, like, if maybe Dottie is another person who is going to have a character reveal as someone else. I'm not sure that that's the case, but it would be interesting because they did tap Emma Caulfield to play Dottie. And Emma Caulfield, if you are like Tab and I and are big Buffy fans, you might know her as Anya from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And the fact that they tapped someone like that, to me, says that she's going to be playing a bigger role in the MCU. Yeah. It doesn't seem like she's just going to be a one-off, and especially the role that they put Dottie in the like reality is kind of like someone that Wanda feels the need to impress. So I'm interested in Dottie moving forward as who is she? Is she another like Geraldine Monica Rambeau situation or an Agnes Agatha Harkness situation? Yeah. So I'm interested in that very much.
Yeah, I agree. Also fun, I guess, sort of Easter egg, because I think it would have happened regardless whoever was cast, but on Buffy, Anya was afraid of rabbits, and then they do that magic show with the rabbit going across the stage, which probably would have happened anyway, but I thought was still kind of a cute Buffy nod.
I also liked, and the Buffy nod that I reached for was also the fact that Anya is actually like a demon in it.
That's true.
And there's references obviously in this to the devil and Agatha being, an agent of him and such.
Yeah. Potentially. And started as a witch and became a demon on Buffy. Spoilers for Buffy, which is
I was like, these are like 15-year-old spoilers.
Yeah, 20-something-year-old.
Go watch Buffy. Why haven't you?
It's a great show. Try to find a version that isn't the remaster where they recut the ratio, because you can see like extras and boom mic people in the background now. It's terrible. Okay, so after the reality break, it's the next commercial for the Strucker watch. And it's the same actors as before. And we are again referencing a big trauma from Wanda's past, as Strucker is the scientist who gave her and her brother the powers, did the experiments on them that resulted in their powers.
And what's funny is, until you pointed out the Stark bomb, I didn't connect that they're both traumas. Like I was like, oh, it's like Stark, and then this is like Strucker, and this was traumatic for Wanda. But having them both be traumas is just very more thematically sound, and also plays into the fact that Wanda is the one who's ultimately in control of everything going on.
Yeah, and I think following that theory, that the next commercial we see, depending on which ones, because that they involve Strucker, which doesn't specifically, like, it's not like her parents dying, makes me think the next one might be Ultron, because he used them and lied to them and manipulated them. But they could also skip that and just go right to Pietro's death.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But there are potentially 9 episodes, and if there is a commercial in every single one, which they might drop it after a while, but if they're not going to, then they should have Ultron and then Pietro.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
But and then the Strucker slogan was "He'll make time for you," which is
very ominous, considering
very ominous. And then this one too, the clock wasn't ticking normally; it was counting down.
Yeah.
So with that, and like the bomb counting down in the first commercial, is very much like we're running out of time. Time is counting down. With the baby stuff, you could say, oh, that's like a biological clock. We're trying to get her to have her kids. But time could also just be running out.
Yes. And I also thought of it as time with Vision, because she's on, like, we know that Vision died in Infinity War. So she's on borrowed time with him right now.
That is true.
So that, to the references to time also, I thought of biological clock with the kids, but I also thought of she's on borrowed time with Vision. She does not know how much time she gets left with him. So that could be the counting down of the clock on this one as well.
Time is running out. And then the watches and commercials are always set to the time 10:10, but this watch is set to 2:42. Which is a reference to Avengers number 242, when Vision's body is repaired after being deactivated. It's part of the same arc from the first one that we mentioned, 238, but this one is even better because both Monica Rambeau and the Scarlet Witch are in this one as well.
Oh, yay. I love these because this is the stuff that I don't pay attention to. So I'm so glad I have you to point this stuff out to me.
Yeah, it's crazy how they sneak in so many little things.
Right.
Oh, I actually forgot one. In the opening to this episode, the water cooler is number 57, which is the Avengers Behold the Vision. I did not find that one myself. A wonderful Redditor did, and I asked if I could bring it up during the show, and they said yes. So thank you so much. Let's see. URSBTN on Reddit. Thank you for finding that.
That too. And also, sidebar, I own that comic. That's like a little. I love Vision.
Vision's great.
Yeah.
Let's see where. Okay, so then we're the magic show. We're in classic sitcom, drunk. While you're supposed to do this, got to cover with magic. And boy, this is just, they keep saying for the children, which is, again, we'll talk about it later, but obviously it seems like an outside force is maybe trying to get Wanda to have children, because it's become so prominent in everything that's going on in the show. I mean,
they started the chant at the I keep calling, it's not a PTA meeting. It's because
planning, they call it a planning
meeting, because I'm like, a PTA meeting is parent teacher associate. There's no kids yet. So the planning meeting, they started the For the Children thing there. And now they're continuing it with this benefit, which the benefit is for the children. But again, Wanda and Vision don't have children yet.
And it's very weird for a group of people in any situation to start chanting for the children. It's creepy.
Oh, for sure. Also that.
Yeah. Not normal.
Yeah, it's not normal. I mean, people chanting anything is probably not normal, and you don't want to be around in that situation.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So this is just, this whole bit with the magic show to me was like their big, like, classic sitcom. I'm gonna do my real magic, and now I have to cover for him so that people don't freak out.
Right.
Yeah. So great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then Also, them chanting "What's in the box" was weird, and I don't want to just like go ahead and say that's a reference to the movie Seven, but that's the only other time that I've heard someone say "What's in the box" over and over.
Agreed. And that was the same thing I thought watching this was I was like, oh, but then I was like, there's no way this is just like a reference to the movie Seven, unless at some point later in the show there's someone's head in a box.
Mm-hmm. Spoilers for Seven, also a very old movie.
Yeah, sorry, spoilers for Seven. Also spoilers, it's Gwyneth Paltrow's head, which would be super weird because she's Pepper Potts in this universe. So that would be a whole other set of weird that would happen.
Whole other thing.
Whole other thing. And I don't think that's what it is. That would be insane if we just like stumbled upon this random thing just because we like the movie Seven.
Yep. Perfect. We got it. And then
okay. Oh, I was just going to point out that at the end of the show, I don't know if are we to the end of the show? Okay, at the end of the show, Geraldine does ask, she was backstage 1 minute and then she was in the box. How did that work?
Mm-hmm.
So was that a genuine question or was it rhetorical?
Great question. Also, what I think is a very small Easter egg is that the brooch that she's wearing looks like her powers, like around her fist, like that swirly.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
I think there's also something up with Agnes's brooches, but you can't see them clearly ever.
Right. I actually thought the same thing because she always has one, but I couldn't tell what they were.
Yeah, can't. Even if you pause it, they never go get a good like detailed shot of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which might mean that they're not anything.
Right. It might mean they're not anything. Maybe. So then they get home, everything went great because it's a sitcom, and sometimes when you do the exact wrong thing, it's actually the right thing, and now everyone loves them.
Yep.
And then Wanda is suddenly pregnant.
Everything.
Here are these.
Yeah. Everything turns color.
Not yet.
Oh, not yet.
Not yet.
Right. Oh, right. Sorry.
Yeah.
I totally jumped the gun. Oh, right. No, everything doesn't turn to color yet. No, that didn't happen.
And she asks if this was really happening, which of course is extremely sad, because it's probably not.
Yeah.
And then they hear a crashing sound outside, and they go out, and a man in a beekeeper suit with bees buzzing around him comes out of the sewer. He does have the sword logo on his back. Mm-hmm. It's hard to see, but it has been paused and clarified a bunch of different places if you want to look. I think that guy's wearing a hazmat suit, and that really doesn't fit in Wanda's little thing, so she made it a beekeeper. Although some people think it's a reference to AIM.
I was just going to say that. I was like, some people think it's a reference to AIM because that's what those suits look like.
Yeah, since we're already going into Sword, it might be like a little nod to AIM that they made it a beekeeper, but I don't think it's going to be AIM and Sword.
I would agree with you. That is a lot to explain in one swoop. AIM is the Advanced Intelligence Mechanics.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And they're bad dudes.
Yeah. So it stands to reason that we've already met S.H.I.E.L.D. and now in this new phase we're introducing Sword. I don't think it's AIM either. I think that it's exactly what you said, where his hazmat suit did not fit in her world, so she made him a beekeeper.
Which is super creepy. Creepy choice, no matter what.
Yeah, super creepy, but it's the only thing that could fit into a 60s sitcom because what else would a hazmat suit, like where else would it go?
Yeah. So then Wanda says no. And rewinds time. Presumably expelling this agent or putting them back or putting them under the spell that's going on, because whatever she did got rid of the problem.
Yeah.
So she could have booted them out, or she could have made him just part of the neighborhood and now he's trapped like everyone else.
Which is interesting because we will want to pay attention to like I want to get a better look at the actor's face, even though it's like covered in beads and stuff, because we will want to pay attention to whether or not that face shows up again in the neighborhood, like in the next episode.
So here is sort of, to me, like a definitive Wanda is in control.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Of this whole thing.
Yeah.
And
We've had hints about this, and now this is she says no, she rewinds time to redo this. So she's in control.
So she's in control. Again, I am not sure how often she is aware of what she's doing.
Right.
Enough to rewind time and redo that bit, but then once that guy is gone, maybe it's just back to pretending that all of this is fine.
Right.
Yeah. So then they redo the "is this really happening?" And then everything starts to turn to color.
Then everything starts to turn into color. Then I love that I like just completely glossed over in this episode like a very important bit, because I just wanted everything to be color and for her to be pregnant.
The shifting ahead in time is interesting to me, because I'm wondering if that also somehow puts her ahead of any kind of infiltration, ahead of like Sword in some way. So by taking it into the 70s now, has she done things that now it's going to be harder for them to get in, or like have ruined their plans or whatever they're trying?
Another, again, interesting reference to time. The bomb counting down, the watch counting down. Now there's a jump ahead in time. How does that affect everything that she's doing? Does that mean she has less time with Vision because she did that? Or is she trying to buy time with Vision? Because both
buy time. Yeah, it is. I feel like maybe the longer she's in, or they're in each decade, the more vulnerable she becomes to like attacks and stuff. But also going forward in time means things like the babies will be born faster. They'll probably, I heard that they had cast actors to play them, so it might even get to the point where they're like teenagers or young adults.
Yeah.
So, or that could just be a rumor.
Yeah.
But like we said in the last one, they do have twins in the comic continuity in multiple iterations. They always have twins.
Yeah, they always have twins. Even Vision has twins they're not with Wanda. Yeah.
Even by himself. Okay, so do you want to answer some questions?
I'm gonna do questions.
I'll do the big one first. We got this question from a couple different people, so I'm just going to say all three of them, and that's the basics of the questions. So on YouTube, Time Toros, and then on Facebook, Stephen Good and Andrew Strickland all asked about, is that devil in the details line a reference to Mephisto, and is he going to be in this show?
So what's funny is we, in our initial Q&A predictions for the show, we got asked a Mephisto question, and we decided not to answer it until we watched the show. Like Tab and I made like a decision to like not address like who could possibly be in the show. Now that we've seen the show, we think that he's involved.
I think Mephisto's involved. If you do not know, Mephisto is basically Marvel's devil. Yes. He's just the devil.
Yeah, he's just the devil.
He looks like you think the devil looks. He does devil things.
Yeah, and now that there's a Grim Reaper helmet, we know that Grim Reaper has worked with Mephisto in the past. We know that other people involved in the show have also worked with Mephisto in the past. We plan on doing an episode that is like a Who is Mephisto episode. So if you don't know who we're talking about, stay tuned for that episode.
Yeah. What's important to this story, or at least where we are now and what Mephisto might be up to, is that he can magnify Wanda's powers and make her powers be even more than they are. So that might be one of the reasons that she's able to sustain this whole world right now.
It could be a reason she's able to manifest the children as well.
Yes. In one version, I do believe that the children are made from parts of Mephisto, and also that he steals them.
Yeah, which is another big thing. And Agatha being there is also interesting because
she works with the devil.
She works with the devil a lot, and the devil wants those kids. So,
yeah, so all the stuff with the kids, for the children, all the weird stuff that's been going on where it's like, have children, really does seem to speak to someone wants your very, very powerful children that you have.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's probably Mephisto.
And it's probably Mephisto. Okay, so and then some people ask who's on the radio again. Jimmy Woo. King West 05 on Instagram
Again, hey Edgar.
Hey Edgar. What is Wanda so afraid of?
I mean, Wanda has a lot to be afraid of, if we're being completely honest. Like, she lost the love of her life. She's brought him back in like an unstable world that she's created in her mind. She can be afraid to lose him. She can be we see the time theme. She could be afraid to like be out of time with him. She could be afraid of the future without him. There's so many things that she could be afraid of. She could be afraid of the like Mephisto himself. She could already know, like, we don't know what she knows at this point, but there's a laundry list of things that she could potentially be afraid of. And and she obviously is afraid of something. There is a very real fear there. We see that in the first episode with the horror movie reference in the shots. We see that in like when the blood happens on Dottie. There's things that have her break. Even the helicopter, she does have like an element of fear to her. So yeah, she's also afraid of people breaking into this world that she's created her perfect life in.
Yeah. Interesting to think about how many things she's afraid of, when my favorite line she's ever had is, I can't control their fear, only my own. In Civil War. And I mean, I guess this is sort of a way of controlling your fear.
It's not necessarily the healthiest, most sustainable way to do it, but it is a way that she's in control of her own fear.
Yeah.
That's one way to do it. But we also know from, even in the MCU, Wanda's never been the most sure of herself character.
Yeah.
She has a tendency to defer to other people and then kind of like take a little bit of a back seat. So the fact that she's in control right now, she could be afraid to lose that control.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, she could maybe be afraid of Mephisto. To that end, I do want to say, I still think she's doing everything. He might be amplifying her powers, right, and he might be trying to get those babies, but I'm pretty sure it's all Wanda. All the magic stuff, and when it goes forward to do the color, is all preceded by her very specific magic special effect, the red with the sparkles.
Yeah. And I completely agree with that. And also, again, this has been announced, so the fact that she's involved in the Multiverse of Madness, the Doctor Strange movie, does speak to the fact that it is her that's in control of everything. And the only thing that I mentioned with Mephisto is she could be aware of him. Like,
she could be. Yeah, maybe. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know what she knows.
Oh, on Instagram, Battle Panda 32. Hi, Julie.
Hi, Julie.
She says, I want to know your theory on the sparkling butterfly thing for the end credits.
Oh.
Most of the things in that sparkly end credits thing are references to characters in the show. We see Wanda's traditional like thing. We see Vision's head thing. We see a rose, which again, guys, it's probably that other flower.
Yeah.
The babies, maybe
the babies, or just the like what butterflies are a metaphor for always is change.
Always change, rebirth.
Always change. So that to me was the big thing. And whether the change is like the children or the change is the literal world keeps changing. It's change. Like, that's what I thought anyway.
If you're a House of M fan, also those end credits with the red and the sparkly are huge visual calls to that comic. I was very delighted.
I was super, like, House of M is amazing. So again, go read House of M, guys.
Go read it. It won't spoil this because it's already different.
Yeah.
A big part of House of M is Wolverine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I saved some questions that we didn't get to last time. Roaming Romanoff on Instagram wanted to know what other characters besides the ones we already know do you think we'll see? And she specifically said Hawkeye was always such a good friend to Wanda in the MCU.
I mean, that would be amazing to see Hawkeye in the show, especially because Hawkeye is in House of M as well.
Yes, big,
So,
important.
a huge part of House of M. So it would be very cool to see Hawkeye show up. As obviously where I am right now and the thing on my arm, I would love to see Doctor Strange pop in maybe as like a at the like in the very last episode, the finale, to kind of like mentor her out of things.
Yeah.
So those are the two big ones that I hope to see. I really want to see Doctor Strange show up in this show.
Knowing that she's going to be in multiverse and that this leads right into it, that's probably like a very safe bet that he would come in at the end, because they need to set that up.
Yeah, for sure. So I really hope to see him. And it's interesting that he's going to be taking on a bigger role in the Avengers moving forward after the loss of Tony, when you have so much of Wanda's past involving Tony and so much of her future involving Stephen.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's big. I hope he can help her.
I hope he can too.
Their
two
powers
of my all-time favorite characters. I cannot wait for this movie. I like Multiverse of Madness getting pushed back was like the worst thing that happened to me. That's not true.
And now they had to pause filming again because London's on lockdown. Yeah.
We'll get it.
Yeah, as far as it would make sense, I guess, if Sword maybe went to Hawkeye and was like, you're her friend. He is the one that usually helps her through something really hard. He usually shows up and helps her. So that would make sense. I just don't know if that's such a, they would have to go get him.
Yeah.
You're saying Doctor Strange showing up, he could possibly be like, what's going on his own, like feel it.
Yeah.
Hawkeye, they're gonna have to call.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree with that. And like I said, I want him to show up because he has been such a stable character for her in the MCU, and it just makes sense sort of because Hawkeye's in the comics that they're referencing. Hawkeye's her constant in the MCU, so it makes sense, but they would have to call him. It would have to be a specific ask.
Yeah, he's not just gonna know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, those are probably the two most likely ones. Were Nat alive, I would say Nat. Still, they could bring her back. Yeah. Wanda might bring her back herself. But I always felt like Nat and Wanda were maybe closer than they actually, they kind of hint at it, but they're the only two girls.
Not alone. She's not alone. That's Nat. So to me, that makes, and then when she picks them up also in Infinity War, she's like, we had an agreement. There's references to the fact that Nat and Wanda are closer than we've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So yeah, it'd be great if she brought Nat back, and then that's how Nat continues along in the MCU.
Yeah. And then we had, I know I wanted to talk about this. Instagram Mediocre Jedi, who I think had another question earlier.
Yeah, we had a question in the last episode.
That's what it was. He wants to know, do you think Wanda will use an accent or not? Goes in and out in the MCU. I know that Elizabeth Olsen said specifically you wouldn't hear it in the sitcoms because that doesn't fit the reality.
Right.
So, yeah. People talk a lot about her accent going in and out, but I have this very specific headcanon that she worked with the greatest spy of all time to become an Avenger, and that Nat worked really hard with her to get rid of her accent.
I completely agree with that. And also the fact that her love interest is, the most advanced intelligence system. He could also have potentially worked with her. And the fact that they share the Mind Stone, he could have helped her. Tapped that in the MCU. So in my headcanon, it always had to do with the Mind Stone connection with Vision as to how she got rid of her accent.
Oh, that's interesting.
But I also love she worked with the greatest spy. That actually is a way more the solid reason that she would have gotten rid of her accent is Nat.
Yeah, I can like see Nat going like, this has got to go. You have to sound neutral. You can't sound like you're from anywhere.
Yeah. And Nat would know better than anybody else that you can't sound like you're from anywhere.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a way better headcanon than my headcanon.
It could be both. Maybe having a Mind Stone also helps.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
And then last question, just for funsies, on Instagram, Evil Rascal, hi Caesar. Who would you like to play in the MCU?
I mean, it doesn't make sense for me because of the way, because of her age that she'd have to be in the MCU. But obviously, I would love to play Cindy Moon because Silk. I would love to play her, but it doesn't make sense because currently she would be like 17, and I definitely do not look 17. So, yeah.
I would love to be Shadowcat, Kitty Pryde.
You would be an excellent Shadowcat.
Would love that. Again, an age thing, but she's someone where they could bring her in at any age. She doesn't have to be
at any age. But for me right now, the she's supposed to be the same age as Peter Parker, and Tom Holland and I are decidedly, we do not look the same age. So yeah. I would also play Clea if they brought her in. I don't look anything like the way she's drawn, but I would clearly, if I were tapped, you know, because they're watching this and they're casting from this.
Right. Yes.
I would totally play Clea. Who, guys, if you don't know who that is, that's Doctor Strange's wife, who's Dormammu's daughter in the Dark Dimension. She could look like anything. She's from the Dark Dimension.
Yeah, who knows? You're age, and you're also more age appropriate for Benedict Cumberbatch. So
right. I am more age appropriate for Benedict Cumberbatch than I would be for Tom Holland.
Yeah. I would also like, even if she's not played by me, if Kitty does come into the MCU, I would love to see them do the Kitty Pryde as Star-Lord comic line, because I love that.
I would love that too. I weirdly like the random X-Men storyline where she is stuck in her phase state.
Oh man. Yeah.
I would love to see that as well. That would be like Kitty Pryde down the line, not like Kitty Pryde immediately, but
yeah,
I like that.
Kitty is surprisingly powerful when I first like saw her as like a kid, and I was like, all she can do is like not be solid, but she's crazy powerful.
And what was funny is I felt the same thing about Rogue when I was a kid, where I was like before she absorbs Captain Marvel's powers, I was always like, all she can do is like touch. All she can do is not do something. Like her power is like she can't touch people. But obviously Rogue is like one of the most powerful mutants. So
yeah,
I was wrong as a child. But yeah.
Yeah, and I do believe I'm behind on Rogue canon, but I think they let her keep the Captain Marvel powers even in versions when she doesn't kill Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I believe that as well.
Yeah, it's more fun if she's real strong and can fly around too.
Yeah, because without that, she's just absorbing other people's powers.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, that was all the questions.
So ask us more. We need more questions. So yeah, feel free on this video to write your more questions for us, and we'll answer.
Especially since we said we're going to be talking about Mephisto, we're going to be talking about Sword in separate short videos. So if there is something you're like, please explain this to me, let us know what it is.
Yeah, and also if there's another like short video that you would like us to do, we're happy to do it, because these don't, the short videos that we have in mind won't, like, we can knock a few of them out.
Yeah.
So predictions for what we think is coming in the 70s, besides children, because we know that.
Yeah, the children.
Really quickly before we wrap up, what do we think is happening moving forward?
I think maybe the 70s will actually maybe get to see Sword, see that side of things.
Mm-hmm. Based
Yeah.
on the promos and the costumes, I think
Mhm.
we're going to see Geraldine fighting against the spell more, because that
Yes.
the 70s costumes is where we saw her ask Wanda who she really is. So
Yes.
I think we're
Um,
going to see a lot more of, and possibly in the 70s we might even get her powers.
maybe. Yeah.
Actually, it'd be
I
cool if they did it in the 80s. Like just think about the visuals that existed in the
Oh
80s
yeah, that's
and like
fair.
how cool it would be to see Monica Rambeau get her powers 80s style.
That would be very cool. Yeah, so I think we might get to see some sword agents on their side of things. Maybe.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're
Yeah,
saying we see the sword, so we might see more of the pullback and the sword. Oh, interesting.
yeah, because we no right now they're watching, they're trying to get in, they want to help her, but like how much do they know? Like what do they know is going on? How long has this been going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I totally agree. I think that that's going to happen in the 70s. It would also make sense for the 70s.
Oh
Because
yeah.
you know what sitcom it's based off of in the 70s?
Um, I want to say the Brady Bunch,
Okay.
but I'm not 100% on that.
Okay.
Um,
That would make sense. I
it would
mean,
make sense. Their outfits look so much like the Brady Bunch to me.
yeah. And the steps
Yeah,
in the house too are very Brady Bunch.
yeah, yeah.
For
So
sure.
that's my guess.
Awesome. Cool. Well, you guys, thank you so much for watching this like super long episode, but we were covering 2 WandaVision episodes. The premiere was amazing. For those of you who are not watching, WandaVision is a Disney Plus show that premieres on, well, Thursdays at midnight, but Fridays for the next 8 weeks, hopefully. They might like push them together. We don't know. They did 2 episodes for the beginning. So I'm super excited. Again, we are MCU Explained on Facebook, Instagram. Now we have a Twitter. So there's
Nice.
that as well. So you can follow us on all major social media platforms. We will also put all of the tags in the description below. That was requested of us, and I apologize. I don't know why I didn't think to do that. I'm a social media manager. That was so bad of me. Anyway, they're all in the tags. Again, ask us questions. We love hearing what you guys think. We love hearing your questions, and we will be back next week with more talking about WandaVision and our predictions for what is happening moving forward. Again, I'm Susan.
I'm Tab.
And you're watching MCU Explained. Thank you guys so much.
Bye.